What have I told you? The US government once sprayed bacteria over an American city, released chemicals into the air over thousands of unsuspecting citizens, and dropped hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes onto its own soil. Sounds like a conspiracy theory. Except all three actually happened, and they were all part of real military experiments conducted during the Cold War. Today, we're looking at 3 times America tested biological warfare concepts on its own people. Let's start with San Francisco. In September 1950, the US Navy launched something called Operation Sea Spray. Their goal wasn't to attack the city. It was to see how vulnerable American cities would be if an enemy released biological weapons. So they secretly sprayed large quantities of bacteria into the air just off the coast. Then they tracked how the particles moved through the city. The military later concluded that nearly the entire population had been exposed. At the time, officials believed the bacteria used were harmless, but years later, concerns emerged when several people developed unusual infections around the same period. Whether those infections were directly linked remains debated. But one thing wasn't: the people being tested had no idea it was happening. Now here's where things get even stranger. Between the 1950s and 1960s, the US military conducted dozens of dispersion tests using a compound called zinc cadmium sulfide. The purpose was simple. They wanted to understand how particles would spread through cities if biological or chemical weapons were ever used in a real attack. To do this, they released the material into the air across multiple locations in the United States, sometimes from rooftops, sometimes from aircraft, sometimes from specially designed dispersal systems. Again, the public wasn't informed. Years later, critics questioned whether cadmium exposure could have posed health risks. Government agencies maintained that the concentrations were too low to cause harm, but the controversy wasn't just about the chemical, it was about consent. Millions of people became part of an experiment they never agreed to join. And then we get to the mosquitoes. Yes, actual mosquitoes. In 1955, the US Army conducted Operation Big Buzz. The objective? To determine whether mosquitoes could be used as vectors in biological warfare. Researchers raised hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes and released them during field tests. The military wanted to see how far they would travel, how effectively they would spread, and whether they could survive after release. Fortunately, the mosquitoes used weren't carrying diseases, but the concept itself sounds like something straight out of science fiction. The military was essentially studying whether insects could become delivery systems for biological agents. And once again, many of these tests occurred without the knowledge of ordinary citizens nearby.